And now the last case that I just want to sort of catch up on, there's not really, spoiler alert, there's not a lot to say. Nancy Guthrie, well, I haven't covered this for a while because, to be honest, there isn't any news. It's not news, no new news. There's still a lot of talking about it. There's a lot of arguments between YouTubers. The streamers are still out there, and the police are coming and giving them citations. Honestly, this Peamar County Police Department, if only they would have been a bit more vigilant the night that Nancy Guthrie disappeared in a puff of smoke from her home. Just God, them streamers have only got to turn up there, and the neighbours are on the phone to the police. I think the police should say to those neighbours, stop phoning us about streamers. Whether you agree with it or not, I'm not saying that I agree with them sitting outside Nancy's house. What I'm saying is, if they want to do it, they have a right to do it. And the neighbours should the police should say to the neighbours, look, they're not doing anything illegal. Stop ringing us because we've got proper crime to deal with, that we're not dealing with very well, it seems. So this is Nancy, poor Nancy. This is another vulnerable person. Nancy's vulnerable from the other end of the age scale, from Preston Davy, who was the baby. She was 84. She was vulnerable for her old age rather than young age. And this lady, she went to dinner with her daughter and her husband, Annie and Tommaso, and went to dinner on the Saturday night. Was driven home apparently by Tommaso. Now, we haven't really had proper confirmation of everything. So bear in mind, we're dealing with, what's the word I'm looking for? We're dealing with timelines for Nancy's, disappearance, but we don't know if this CCTV of Nancy or any, camera footage of Nancy entering the house. We haven't seen because she apparently went to Annie and Tommaso's house, which is literally around the corner. Apparently she went in an Uber. We haven't seen the video of her in the Uber. We don't know what she was wearing. We don't know. We only know that Tommaso apparently dropped her off. The garage door opened and closed. That was thought to be Nancy going into the house. And then, of course, we've got keep forgetting about the bloody, I don't forget about it, but, there was the door cam that has been recovered. Very clear picture of this guy, really, when you think about it. But as far as we know, we still don't know who this is. Now, I do feel, to me, I feel like the FBI or the Sheriff's Department or whatever, I do think they know who their suspect is, clearly, because they are not looking for Nancy, are they? The FBI isn't putting out appeals. They did their original appeal, but, they're not doing and Nancy's family now, Savannah Guthrie and etc. They've gone quiet. They're not doing appeals. That suggests to me, and I don't know what you think, that maybe they do know who it is, or they are pretty certain of who's involved in this. But of course, they're waiting for this DNA analysis to come back. So Sheriff Nanos, Deputy Dog, the Keystone Sheriff, well, we know what we think of him. So there's recently been an interview released, but it turns out that the interview was actually done weeks ago, so there's nothing new in it. But the main thing that he's asking for is patience from the public, because DNA results take a long time. So do you feel, or I feel anyway, and you'll let me know what you think, Do they know who this person is? Don't forget, they've also refused help from the United Cajun Army or whatever to search the desert. They've volunteered to search for Nancy's remains. They've said no, they're not accepting outside help. That's strange, don't you think? Why not? You know, here's this organisation offering to search the desert. They might find other missing people that have never been found. I watched the guy be interviewed, and he said, the guy in the Navy, he said every time they go on a search for people, they find other people, you know, that they weren't looking for. Because, you know, the police will only search for so long and then they stop, don't they? And they wait for a dog walker or a hiker to find them. You know, if they don't find whoever it is they're looking for within the first couple of days, they just sort of stop searching, don't they, normally, unless they've got some information. And missing people are often found by dog walkers or hikers. But anyway, so we've got the Cajun Navy or whatever offering to search, and they're saying no. Sheriff's Department said no. Wonder why they said no. I mean, do they not want the investigation interfering with, because they know what's happened to Nancy, or they think they know, and they're just trying to dot the I's and cross the T's? A lot of people still suspect Tommaso and Annie, and that I think is just simply because they were the last people to see Nancy. So Nancy had been at their house in the evening. Tommaso allegedly drove her home, watched her go in through the garage door. So they're bound to be suspects, because though Sheriff Nanos says they're not, you know, he said the family has been cleared and the spouses, but people are finding it difficult to move on from Annie and Tommaso. I don't think they're ever going to move on from Annie and Tommaso until the real culprit's found. Just because the logical person is Annie and Tommaso. You know, looking at that rucksack that Annie's got on there, it looks a bit like the does it look like? No, it doesn't. So, poor Annie and Tommaso, they are, you know, they're subject of a lot of aspersions cast. Same with Savannah sometimes. Savannah Guthrie, of course. She's the famous sibling presenter on Today's Show, and now she's been chosen to host the Wordle show by Jimmy Fallon. And then there's Cameron, the brother. You know, now Sheriff Nanos, as I say, he announced that all the family and their spouses had been cleared. The problem with that is nobody believes anything Sheriff Nanos says, because he's said so many contradictory things, and, you know, just nobody believes him. So sadly, although really technically the family have been cleared according to him, nobody believes him. That's the problem, isn't it? Nobody believes him. Oh dear. Let's just have a look at this article. They're actually, so now, so then the other thing is, there's a lot of animosity between Nanos and the FBI. So I just saw this article. So apparently, the head of the FBI is apparently brought it up again just recently. Let's have a look. Keystone Cash reignites the battle over Nancy Guthrie. This is according to the Daily Beast. Doesn't sound very reliable, does it? But anyway, let's see what they say. Just the Daily Beast, just the name of it makes think. So Keystone Cash reignites the battle. So he's pointing the finger at local police for fumbling the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance. After being quizzed about the case in a new interview, he raised complaints about local authorities sidelining federal agents during the crucial first days of the search for the missing mother of Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie, costing investigators valuable time. He claimed that the FBI offered assistance from the outset but was shut out by local authorities. So here's Nanos. When I look at Nanos, he always reminds me of something out of The Hobbit. Nanos. He says the same thing. Nobody, I've not seen anyone come on any of the YouTube channels and say, oh no, he's a brilliant sheriff, he's brilliant. Everybody's critical of him except him. So is there something in that? I don't know. I don't know him. Maybe he is very competent. I have no idea. But I think he is definitely ego-driven. And of course, it has come out that he lied on his resume. You know, he didn't times, etc. So Patel says, and I agree with you, David, Kash Patel, he's not exactly brilliant either, is he? So I feel like the Guthrie family is stuck between a rock and a hard place. Now, another thing that came out was that apparently the Guthrie family have paid for private investigators to investigate this case. Again, till it's actually confirmed by the family, you know, it's all a bit of speculation, isn't it? It's on office where we had 150 agents and analysts working on the Nancy Guthrie case to provide intelligence. So remember at the beginning of this case, which has been 4 months now since Nancy disappeared, it was February, wasn't it? End of February. Donald Trump, he said that, you know, they could have, even though Nancy, don't forget, she was very anti-Trump, and did donate quite a lot of money, didn't they, to Missing Children, was it? The Missing Children charity? You know, Savannah did acknowledge all missing people get. And the thing is, along with high profile cases, you get the attention which you need. Stand the neighbours whinging about the YouTubers. It's not as if this case is over. Where is Nancy? You know, the streamers are keeping the case alive. You can say they're doing it for clicks, for views, or do, but they're there. They're talking about Nancy. You would want your loved one to be talked about, wouldn't you? I just don't understand it. It's like the neighbours are trying to pretend Nancy never existed. Anyway, remember he made similar allegations to this when he appeared on Sean Hannity's podcast in May, where he claimed the FBI was kept out of the investigation just for first 48 years after she disappeared. County Sheriff Nanus quickly pushed, said the FBI had been noted immediately. The Bureau's task force was working alongside local investment and night justice. So chill, the director of the FBI making an interview saying this, that, and the other about a tweet or another interview. Why don't they just sit and talk together like men? Grown men, like they're not kids. They're like handbags at dawn, isn't it? All the time. It's pathetic. People in their position, a sheriff, the head of the FBI, acting like bloody teenagers having a hissy fit. Pathetic. And the Guthrie, said Nanos. While the FBI director was not on scene, coordination with the Bureau began without delay. So that's what he says. So it's he says, she says, shoulda, woulda, coulda, all that crap, handbags at dawn, hissy fits, whinging about each other, this about the DNA, did it go to the right lab, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. And in the meantime, Nancy sort of got lost in all the arguments. Same with the arguments between streamers. Well, it's none. All that matters in this case is where is Nancy. So apparently Patel said what the FBI is great at is finding a needle in a haystack in a needle in a haystack. Well, they haven't found Nancy. They haven't identified a suspect, well, as far as we know anyway. Carlos was detained. We had Luke Daly was detained, and that was apparently a massive operation, FBI operation, but nothing came of it, unless he is still a suspect. Yeah, and since then, they were really early on, weren't they, in March, in the first week or so? And now we're 4 months down the line and there's been no other developments. No other developments. Strange, isn't it? Sorry, I'm coming back. Now, how can... This is the question. This is why this case has gripped not only America but the world, is that an 84-year-old woman disappears literally into thin air from her bed. What's the reason? I don't believe in the ransom. I think the ransom notes, that they've not found out where these ransom notes came from yet either. I think they're like a decoy. I think whoever went in there for Nancy, they went in there for Nancy. And the kidnapping notes, etc., they're like a decoy so that people think it's a different reason. But I think when, and I hope it will be solved at some point, this case is solved, I think it was somebody who knows Nancy very well. I'm not saying her family, it could be anyone. Someone who knows that house well, knows the area well, they were very confident, they weren't nervous. And I think they went in there for Nancy, but they wanted it to look as if it was something else. To look as if it was a kidnapping. That's my, that's only my opinion, of our theories over this case. Some people think it was a robbery gone wrong. Some people think she was kidnapped by the cartel and taken to Mexico. Everybody's got their theories. And, everybody's theory is as valid as the other one because we don't know. But so I'm just telling you my theory. This is somebody who knew Nancy. Maybe they owed Nancy money and she was asking for it back. Seems like Nancy was quite a kind person. So did she borrow somebody some money, and then when it came to the time of paying it back, they didn't have it, or they didn't want to pay her back? And did they come up with this as a way of removing Nancy and therefore removing the debt? That's a possibility, isn't it? Or are they angry with Nancy over something? And then, of course, some people think it's because of Savannah. It's like almost an attack on Savannah rather than an attack on Nancy. Personally, I don't believe that, but again, it wouldn't, it's possible, isn't it? Yeah. Yes, Dave. Well, of course, the reward is $1.2 million. That is the reward that's being offered. Combination of the FBI and Savannah and the family, but nobody's come forward. So when people don't come forward for a reward of $1.2 million, that means that the only people who could claim that reward are the people that did it, because otherwise somebody would have come forward. I think personally, $1.2 million. If somebody thought they could come forward and be safe, because of course they might be scared of the perpetrator. Then some people are saying that the guy that was at this guy that was at the door, he's just a minion. That there's a Mr. Big who's controlling it all. This guy could even be dead now. Some people are saying maybe he's been removed from the equation. Ah, people are saying all sorts of things, and they will, because we don't know what happened. And everybody's theory is just as valid as the next one, really, isn't it? Until it's proven otherwise. Until we know who did it. Literally could be anyone. So yeah, I was watching. The experts are out talking about it, aren't they? The FBI experts. I mean, ex-FBI, ex-law enforcement, ex-everything. They've all been out there talking about this. And they give their insight. It's in it. But one thing that they've all got in common, because sometimes they say different things. So the problem is these experts that come out and give their voice their opinions. They're different opinions. We'd have one saying, "Oh yeah, it's burglary gone wrong." Another one, "Oh no, it's kidnapping." Another one, this, that, and the other. So they don't know either. They're giving their theories. But do you know one thing that I think I've noticed that they do all agree on, so you can presume that it's probably true, is this is so unusual. None of them had ever seen a case like this before. Kidnapping, yeah, but kidnapping an 84-year-old woman. The the high stakes, because Nancy's soberly. Because if you're planning a kidnappings can go wrong so very easily. So why kidnap Nancy, who was so delicate health-wise? Maybe they didn't realise how delicate she was. That's a possibility. But also, don't forget, they didn't leave a ransom note immediately. And when they did send a ransom note, if it was them, they sent it to the media, TMZ, the local news outlets. Kidnappers don't do that. They want everything very quiet, kept under the carpet. They'll normally say, "Don't go to the police, don't go to the media." Well, not this kidnapper. He wanted the attention. So that is weird. So all these experts say it is weird. It is weird. And unusual case, and they've never heard of another case similar to this. And nearly there's nothing new under the sun, is there? Normally whatever case happens, there's always a similar case somewhere to refer to, but not in this one. An elderly lady. And keep saying, "Oh, she was so nice, she never done any harm to anyone," but maybe she had done harm to people wittingly, or they imagined that she'd done harm to them. I particularly think it's to do with money somehow, or something. They I do believe, this is, I say, it's an opinion. They deliberately went in there to take Nancy and probably to kill her, and then they covered that up with this kidnapping crap. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. So that's how I feel at the moment. Nothing that I've seen or heard experts have heard talking about, nothing has convinced me any differently. I still look at I can't move away from this guy, and I'm sorry if he is innocent or whatever, but this Luke one, I still don't understand why he's changed his appearance so much when he did that. When he did that interview with the local news station. So remember, he did the interview like this, clean shaven, head shaved, about 3 layers of clothes on for some unknown reason, even though it was 100 degrees. And this apparently was what he looked like just the year before. Curly black hair, goatee beard. And then he changed his appearance so much for this interview. It's strange, isn't it? Strange. So yeah, I'm still suspicious of him, but he was detained. His house was searched, his car was searched. He was not arrested. So, but it hasn't been cleared. Nobody will be cleared. Well, Nanos says the family are cleared, but I don't think they can be cleared. Nobody can be cleared until the perpetrator is charged. How can anyone be cleared? So yeah, it'd be interesting to see as time goes on. I mean, this is where we are. So we're waiting for DNA tests still. Nanos said in his interview, I'm asking for patience. DNA takes a long time, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, when proper comes out, I will be back to tell you about it. And really, even though I've been covering Preston's case, the real reason I haven't covered Nancy Guthrie case is because there's not really been anything proper new to report. You can't just keep going over the same thing all the time. But I want to keep Nancy's name in the headlines, if you like, or prevalent on my channel. So every now and again I will do a little update, whether there's any news or not. If I'm hoping that something will develop, but if not, I'll still come on and just remind everybody about this